My guest today is Becky McNichols, founder of Rooted Life Academy, a spectacular home-based microschool, homeschool enrichment program in the Kansas City area that I had a chance to recently visit. Becky taught in public schools for 15 years, including most recently in a Title I public school that served predominantly low-income and migrant students. She grew increasingly drained by her public school teaching job and resigned in the spring of 2022 to launch Rooted Life. Becky opened her program that fall with 8 students, ranging in age from kindergartners to fourth graders. And today, her microschool is at capacity with about a dozen students and a waiting list, including a waiting list for future years, too, Becky. So we'll get into all of that as well. Becky McNichols, welcome to the Liberated Podcast.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I'm so excited to get to be a part of your podcast. I love listening to it, and I just love getting to follow you and all of the great things that you are helping do and the support that you give other people in this journey.
Well, back at you, because you are doing such great work in building community and identifying and supporting the kind of growing cluster of education entrepreneurs in the greater Kansas City area. When I visited there a few weeks ago, I met with 7 education entrepreneurs, 7 microschool founders, including you. And all of you that I met had just recently launched your pods or microschools within the past 3 years. And all of you were former public school teachers. So it's really interesting to see kind of momentum building there, and just appreciate your efforts to kind of bring these entrepreneurs together and provide that community and collaboration. So I want to get into more of that today as well. But I'd love to start, Becky, with your story of why did you become a teacher? What was your kind of journey into education to begin with?
So I grew up in Washington State. Both my parents were teachers, and I had some really great teachers that I loved throughout my public school experience myself. And so that just encouraged me to go into teaching. And it just was a natural fit. I really love kids, and I especially love children in those primary aged years of kindergarten through like fourth grade. So going into teaching myself, it was a natural fit. All of my classes at my college were just so exciting and fun. And I loved being able to help in the local schools to I guess get practice for my college degree, but be able to see the public school system and how things were going and work with the kids there. And then it just went from there. So I started teaching. Actually, my first full year of teaching was in Japan, and I taught 4-year-olds in Japan. And I was there for 2 years. And then I moved back to America. I moved to California, and I was working on getting my credentials transferred to California. And I taught at a preschool and loved that. And then finally was able to get my California teaching degree switched over, or my California teaching degree. Everything switched over finally. And I started working at a charter school, and I taught third grade there. I taught there for 3 years. And the charter school approach was really cool because they had instruction for the majority of the morning and just barely into the afternoon. And then kids were able to go home, or kids were able to stay for elective classes taught by local community members and other teachers as well. And so that was a really cool opportunity to see kind of a different schedule that wasn't traditional necessarily, but the kids were able to do elective classes that they wouldn't normally get in the actual school setting. So I loved that. Then I taught at a Title I school in Southern California for about 5 years before my husband and I and our 2 children moved to Kansas in the summer of 2020. And I taught here in public school for 2 years before starting Rooted Life Academy.
Just amazing. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit, Becky, about your experience of sort of pouring all of yourself into teaching and really becoming burnt out. I mean, I think is probably the right way to put it, and something that I think a lot of other teachers experience too in a conventional classroom, when you're expected to do so much with so little and wear so many hats. I wonder if you can talk about how that burnout sort of built up over time for you.
Yeah. So when I was teaching in Southern California at the last school I was at before moving, I was there for 5 years and it was a Title I school. Everybody was super supportive, admin, teachers, parents. It was a really great community of partnership, a really great ecosystem of nurturing the child and who the child is and what they need and getting them the resources that they need. And it was just such an incredible opportunity. I was excited for my own personal children to go there as well, knowing that it was just a really positive place to be. Then COVID happened and we moved to Kansas. And the first school I was at was a great school, but it served the complete opposite dynamic from Title I. It served this really affluent area, and the kids were great, and the families were great, and the school was great. But as a teacher, I really felt the need to continue working with those Title I children. And so I stayed there 1 year, and with COVID, how COVID changed education in so many ways, there was a lot of things that you just couldn't do anymore, like that were so dynamic to learning and teaching and growing at those young ages. All of the hands-on enrichment, the engaging activities, all of those had to be 6 feet apart and wearing masks. And so all of that changed so much in that short time, that first year after COVID. After that school, I went to another Title I school in our area. Sorry, that first year was the affluent school, and then I went to a Title I school in our area. COVID effects still affecting everything, like the hands-on engaging activities, teaching phonics. How can I teach kids phonics and how your mouth moves when I am wearing a mask? The kids can't even see how your mouth is moving. So it was really difficult to not be able to teach in the ways where kids get the most out of their learning. And as well, the parents didn't have the resources to also participate in the child's education. Maybe they were working several jobs. Maybe they were in a house where there was multiple families living together and they just didn't have the one-on-one time with their own child to help really work with their child where they needed to be. Maybe they didn't even speak English, so they weren't able to help their child learn English either, learn to read. And while I had 16 students here in Kansas, compared to teaching in California, I had 28 kindergartners. My 16 second graders here in Kansas felt like far more than 28 kindergartners. And I felt like I was going every day to work and I was pouring all of myself out to these wonderful children, but it was a hole with a bucket with holes in it where everything I was pouring out, it didn't last. It was going nowhere, and I wasn't able to help the children the way that they needed to be helped, but I was also draining myself too. And when I would come home to my own family and my children who are growing older, I was exhausted and I felt like I had nothing left to give my family. And it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking thinking I'm doing so much to help these children at school, which is making a little bit of a difference. And then I come home and I don't have anything left to give my sweet children what they need as well. So the burnout was strong. It came on really fast. It was so unexpected, especially because in comparison to my time in California teaching at a Title I school, I was so depleted here. And a lot of it, I think, was COVID related, but I also think a lot of it was just the resources available to these families, and the partnership just wasn't there as well as much as it was in California. There's so many reasons that it just contributed to that burnout. And um my husband and I just felt like something had to change.
Yeah. So then what were those conversations that you had with your husband? I mean, I guess, how did you go from burnout and feeling drained to saying, okay, well, I'm going to be an education entrepreneur then?
So back in California, I kept thinking like this will be so great when my kids are here. I'll know who their teachers are. I'll see them every day. I'll know, who their friends are. I'll feel really confident and comfortable on what they're learning and what's going on at school because I'm here as their parent. And so it never occurred to me that something like different was about to happen. But the year that I was here in Kansas teaching at the Title I school, my daughter was actually in kindergarten at my school. And once again, I thought, oh, this will be great. I'll know what's going on. I'll know her teachers. This will be a really great opportunity for us as a family just to be involved in our child's school life. And as the year went on, I I felt really disconnected. Even though I literally was two doors down from my daughter's classroom, I was so disconnected to what was going on. I would see and hear things that never were communicated to families, and it was really disheartening. My husband started telling me, "Hey, I think you should start a pod. I think you should be a pod teacher." And I was shocked because um first of all, I just thought that that was kind of strange. Like pod schools, that's weird. I don't know about that. I'm a public school teacher. That's what I am. And my sweet husband just kept saying, "I think you should be a pod teacher. I think you should start this. I think you'd be really good at it." Well, my husband, he was really encouraging about that, and he saw me so much of the time spending all my time and energy creating resources and creating activities and engaging things for my students to do. And he felt like that creative side of me would benefit students in a pod setting, a smaller pod setting, a smaller setting, where I would be able to have a lot more freedom to do what kids need, how kids learn best. And I also, for many, many years, have created resources that I sell online for at Teachers Pay Teachers, for other teachers to use in their classrooms. And so he saw all of this creative side of me and what I love to do and spend my energy on to help children learn and grow. And he felt that that would be best utilized in a pod setting so that I could, have more freedoms for teaching and the kids could have more freedoms for learning. And so he actually started talking to me about it, I would say in fall of 2020, and I brushed it off for a long time. And in December of 2021, I came to him and some things that had been shifting in my mind, especially seeing my daughter in the public school setting. And I was thinking, gosh, something's got to change, something's got to be different. And so I came to him, and after I had been reflecting for a while, I told him, okay, in 5 or 6 years, when our children are done at elementary school and they go to middle school, then maybe we can do something different. And once again, I still thought that having my children with me at the public school would be the best thing. And I knew as soon as those words were leaving my mouth that my 5 or 6 year plan that I was telling him about was not a 5 or 6 year plan anymore. It was going to be much sooner than that. And God had really been planting the seeds the whole way through, especially through my husband and his encouragement. I know a lot of people in my position, they have a hard time with their spouses kind of getting on board, but my spouse was on board far before I was on board. And so I started talking to him about that 5 or 6 year plan. And then as soon as I said it, I knew that it was much sooner than that. And that was December of 2021. And in February of 2022, I finally was like, okay, I think this is something I need to look more into. And I was able to get the contact information from a gal down the road from me about 4 miles and named Jen, who you also got to see when you were here in Kansas.
Yes,
And
Salt and Light Academy.
yeah, Salt and
Yes.
Light. And so I reached out to her blindly and was like, "Hi, my name's Becky. I heard you do this thing at your house and I would love to come see it." And so she was so warm and welcoming. So I got to meet up with her in March of that year. And at the same time, I found I was doing some like looking online, not even knowing what to even search or look for. And I found a group on Facebook that was all about building micro schools. And so I joined that group and started listening to the podcast that was part of that group and learned a lot. Then I got to go check out Jen's program in person and meet with her. And when I met with her, I was like shocked because this kind of learning environment existed and shocked that it was so freeing and so welcoming of the creative things that like we as teachers love to do with our students, and that the students and the parents were all just this great wonderful community that wanted and needed something along these lines to be able to learn in those authentic ways. And so from there I left, and I even told Jen when I met with her, I said, okay, this is my 5 or 6 year plan. And I left there going, oh my gosh, I think I can do this next year. Like, I think this is happening. So I came home and talked to my husband, and he said, you've got to start this next year. You've got to do it. You've got to go for it. And we are big believers in God. And so just through a lot of prayer and a lot of leaps of faith forward, we put into motion for Rooted Life Academy to start that fall. And it was incredible. I worked behind the scenes a little bit because I wanted to make sure everything would be okay, leaving my job, and how that would all work out with like benefits and insurance and all those things. But I was able to resign at the end of April, like resign um, for that year. Like at the end of that year, I put in my resignation in April, and through May, I started marketing Rooted Life Academy, and through the summer, I was able to start with 8 students that fall.
Oh, just amazing. And you have this beautiful micro school space, kind of renovated, lower level of your home. And I know you said that your husband is quite skilled and builds furniture and is just really talented and was able to help you to create that incredible space. And it just feels so cozy and warm and welcoming. So I'm wondering, Becky, when you opened in last fall of 2022, what was attracting parents to this new, home-based micro school? What were they finding appealing about your model?
A lot of the families wanted to be in a faith-based program where they weren't subject to the quickly changing climate of public schools. They wanted to be in a spot where they could partner together with the educators and know what's going on. But not only that, being able to help their child as well. So I'm big on partnership with my families and being able to share with them what we're learning, why we're learning it, and how they can continue the learning at home, and making it this really cohesive opportunity for their children to learn. And I think that families are really finding the value in that. Especially just as I mentioned, I was a public school teacher and I didn't even know half of the things that were going on in my daughter's classroom 2 doors down. And how am I supposed to help her grow and learn if I'm not sure what they're even working on? So with these families, they really wanted to partner together. They wanted to be able to have their child learn in a loving, Christ-centered environment, in a spot that also understood that while children are learning, they're not necessarily always learning the same things at the same time. And one of the things that I really feel passionate about is meeting children where they're at, doing what they need, and then moving on to the next thing, not just moving them on because of their age or stage. So while I have children who maybe are second grade age, if they're still working on a kindergarten or first grade skill, I'm working to help them fill in those gaps, build that foundation, and be successful so that we're not miles down the road thinking, oh, yeah, we still have these big holes back here that we need to fill. So they really loved the fact that I'm able to monitor where their child is at, work on what their child needs while continuing to build their success and their confidence in what they're doing so that their child is continuing on successfully, not continuing on with a bunch of holes and gaps in the background.
Yeah, it's really the beauty of individualized, customized learning that you are able to tailor the curriculum to each child and their needs and where they're at, rather than just having a top-down curriculum that they're expected to push forward on, even if they may not be ready at the kind of mastery level yet. And your two children are also in your micro school. So now you have that kind of cohesive family learning experience that you were looking for. So your learners are technically homeschoolers. Homeschooling and starting a private school are thankfully quite easy, or relatively easy compared to other states in Kansas. Why did you decide to sort of go the homeschool route as opposed to opening sort of a recognized private school? What was the appeal there?
So I felt most led to homeschool, to do a homeschool route versus opening a private school because I really like the flexibility of homeschooling. I really like that there's so much involved in homeschooling that recognizes what the children need and what's best for them and moves at the pace of the child. There's so many more opportunities for learning because of the flexibility that we have within homeschooling. One of the unique things that I also offer is a 4-day week. So I have options for full time, which is 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, or part time options, which is a combination of days between Monday through Thursday. And one of the things that was really important to me was that the kids are still part of their families during the week, that they have those options, whatever their schedules might be during the week. If they need a part time schedule, they have that flexibility, but they also have Fridays with their parents or their families at home to extend the learning, to do what their family needs to do in a natural opportunity environment. And for me, that was really important too. So while my children and I were off on Fridays from Rooted Life Academy, we're still doing these valuable experiences together that incorporate real life learning and what the children are interested in and being a part of our community. And so I wanted that flexibility within the homeschool space to do those opportunities and offer those enrichments. For families versus being a private school, I felt like was a little more rigid than what I was wanting for my own children. A couple weeks ago, my daughter wanted to bake an apple pie, and she's never done that. But I printed out the ingredient list and had her make a shopping list for it. We went to the store, and she had to pick the materials or the ingredients that we needed. She came home and she made an apple pie, and it was the best apple pie I've ever had. But I wanted opportunity for my own family to have things like that. It was a Friday, and that homeschooling route kind of led better to it than doing a private school option.
Yeah, and it's interesting that more and more school districts across the country are actually moving towards the 4-day week. Some of that was occurring pre-COVID, but even more so since COVID, as there is more of a recognition that less seat time is okay, and adults, as especially since COVID, are more comfortable with shortened work weeks or more virtual work arrangements, that there's less of this focus on 5 days a week you have to be in a classroom. So that's great. And your program, the full-time program, is $8,000 per year. You are at capacity. You do have a waiting list. Maybe tell us a little bit about sort of your plans for growth going forward to sort of meet that unmet demand.
I'm super excited because while I started 2022 with my 8 students, in the fall of 2023, those same 8 students continued. And so what I feel is happening is just this continuing community that's building within Rooted Life Academy. And while right now I'm kindergarten through 4th grade, I do plan to continue forward with the ages that I have, especially of my own children. As my children age, I want to continue to offer enrichment and schooling opportunities for their age and peers that are also their age. So I plan to continue forward with those ages. I'm in the works of expanding our space that we have now to be able to offer more spots for enrollment, especially as the years go. That'll help give a lot more opportunity for us to continue to grow and also bring in new families that are interested as well. As the kids continue to get older, I look for opportunities that help them develop skills and personal responsibility and motivation to their learning. So with that, in our expanded space, I'm looking at offering kind of a collab lab for them where they have the resources and tools to be able to collaborate together with their learning, but then also to be able to bring in experts that can help expand their learning in valuable ways, so that it's them being able to experience their learning from other people who are experts in the field, but then also expand their learning opportunities to learn online as necessary, having, maybe a Spanish teacher that's teaching on location, but virtually we're able to participate with that. So as we continue forward, I want to be able to know the needs of our families and the ages of the students and also our community, and be able to offer that in a way that we can continue to help these children develop in real life and interest-led ways.
Oh, I just love that. I just love that is so much demand. So many families want what you're offering. And I also love that there is a growing cluster of these micro schools and education entrepreneurship happening in your area. You mentioned Jen Hunt from Salt and Light, who was an inspiration for you. And now you are an inspiration for others. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing on the ground and the kind of community you're trying to build among these education entrepreneurs.
So I started a group called IEC of NEK, which is kind of a mouthful, but it's Innovative Educational Collaborative of Northeastern Kansas. And this is a sister group to what Delana Wallace is doing in Wichita with her WISE group, which is just incredible. And Delana Wallace is incredible as well. So I'm wanting to bring all of these incredible entrepreneurs in our area together. And a lot of the programs look very different, but we're still offering what the families and the communities we live in need, which is incredibly valuable. So within that, I've brought together a bunch of these entrepreneurs to be able to collaborate together, be able to support each other, share resources, talk about successes or talk about challenges, and be able to help solve those problems that we bring together. And what I'm noticing is that so many people want to help this need to provide education that's non-traditional, that's innovative, that allows children to still be children and to learn in the best ways that children learn, to learn hands-on and engaging activities, experience that are truly transferable to the real world, and that the children can learn in the real world. For me, one of the biggest things is that the classroom exists outside of the four walls. Okay, in my Title I school that I was in just recently, I had 0 windows, which I felt like was so strange. 0 windows. And we couldn't even see the world outside of us in our classroom. And I felt like in some ways, isn't that so symbolic of public school a little bit? Like we're in this like little bubble where we can't even be a part of the real world. We can't even see it. And these kids are supposed to be able to participate in it in productive ways. And so being in this new setting, I really want my families and my students to be a part of learning and be able to transfer that learning outside of the quote unquote classroom walls, right? And to know that the whole world is our classroom and we're constantly learning. And so what I notice is that these other entrepreneurs are wanting the same things. They want their children to have these dynamic experiences where they actually, as kids, can participate productively in our world. And whether it be socially, whether it be financially, whether it be in a way where their interests continue to motivate their learning. And maybe it's all of those wrapped up together. These other entrepreneurs are passionate about leading these students in such ways where they're confident and successful. They have the skills necessary to be able to communicate, to be able to relate to others, maybe to disagree in love, or to be able to do their own research and think for themselves and form opinions, but also be okay with somebody else having a differing opinion. Like these educators are incredible. And what they're doing with their students is allowing them to learn in ways where children do best. The engagement and the hands-on activities and the real world opportunities for these kids it blows my mind. I ask in my group, in my IEC group, I ask like, what are you guys up to for this month? And the ideas that these other entrepreneurs are doing are incredible. They're great and they're wonderful. And it just makes me so excited that within this movement of microschooling, that these kids have opportunities like this. These kids have adults who are advocating for them or helping provide opportunities like this for them. And that these educational models are allowing for families to participate in something like this. Many of the families, maybe they want to homeschool themselves, but they just can't. Maybe it's because they work full time. Maybe it's because they don't feel like they have the skills necessary to do it. And so as they look for opportunities or options, they find these entrepreneurs who want to do for them what maybe they feel like they can't do for themselves. And so that's what I'm seeing, is that these models help families homeschool who want to homeschool, or help families get out of public school who, they couldn't necessarily do it themselves because they're working full time. There's so many options for families, and it's incredible to see all those options, that there's something for everybody. And the way that they're sprouting up, they're also relatively local for families as well. And I love that there's a lot of those options locally versus having to maybe be in the car for so long each day, one way or that way. So that's also something I'm noticing, is that many of them are popping up in locations where families are able to have even options between 2 or 3 places to send their child.
I just love that you are busy building Rooted Life and also building this grassroots community of education entrepreneurs and providing that opportunity for connection and collaboration, and just feeling that they're supported, because entrepreneurship can be lonely, especially when you're building non-traditional educational models. So again, kudos to you for creating this group and being able to support your local founders there. So as we begin to wrap up, Becky, I wonder what you think about sort of reflecting on the past couple of years, or I guess a little over a year since you launched Rooted Life. How has it been for you? And are you glad that you expedited your 5 to 6 year plan and accelerated it to open last year?
It's been incredible. There were days, especially when I first opened, that I would be doing something like cutting out lamination while the kids were eating lunch. And I kept feeling like I was going to get in trouble. Like an administrator was going to walk by and see me cutting out lamination while my students were eating lunch and like get mad at me. And I just felt like this stress of like these little things that maybe I would have gotten in trouble for in the public school space, but being able to like let go of that stress and being able to make decisions in the moment that was what was best for the kids and their learning at that time. It's been incredible to have that opportunity. I have found within this movement that the entrepreneurs that I meet with are so supportive and so collaborative. I felt like in the public school setting, the collaboration with among teachers, while it was somewhat there, it was very competitive. And I worked with many teachers over the years who didn't really want the teacher next door to succeed, and they wanted to be better than that teacher. And we're better when we work together, and there's so much that we've been able to do collectively because we're collaborative on this in this movement. Like I said, Jen down the street, constantly we're meeting together to discuss ideas and see what she's doing, what I'm doing, how we can continue to connect our efforts. And that's one of the things about the IEC of NEK is being able to collaborate together is huge. And when we work together, we're able to not only be successful for ourselves, but help our families and our students be successful, help our community be successful, and so much more. So having that collaborative community has been huge. And for my family, it's been incredibly freeing that we have this opportunity. My husband, bless his heart, with his support from the very beginning, only continues to be supportive of what we're doing. And we have so much more valuable time together as a family. And we enjoy that, I get to connect with my kids and help them work and grow and learn with the things that they're learning at school. And I don't know, it's just been incredibly freeing, but just the opportunity to be creative and teach in a way that's best for kids and best for learning, it has been like huge.
Oh, just so exciting. So, Becky, if my listeners and viewers want to connect with you, find out more about Rooted Life, what is the best way for them to reach you?
So I have a Facebook page that you can search Rooted Life Academy and it will come up. And I also have an Instagram, Rooted Life Academy. And I have an email address, rootedlifeacademy@gmail.com. So those are all great ways to find me. If you are in the Northeast Kansas area and you're looking to collaborate with the group that I mentioned, please reach out to me. The group is called IEC of NEK, but send me an email. I'd be happy to connect you in our group to continue to help this movement grow in our area.
Becky McNichols, congratulations on your success. Best wishes for the future, not only of Rooted Life, but for the cluster of education entrepreneurship in your area. Thank you so much for being on the Liberated podcast.
Thank you so much, Carrie.